Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight is. Wow, what a beautiful day it is, and beautiful trees, and there's actually, I don't know, that might be a orange tree out here and a tomato plant out here. So this is really beautiful out here. This is my first time out in this area here, and I hope the background noise doesn't affect this video. Only one way to tell. So anyway, of course that big truck would have to go by. I love you so much, and if you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome, and you can find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K, Dingman. Plus, you could give my videos a thumbs up, and you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, don't be afraid, don't be shy. Swing by and say hi, Starlight, by leaving Starlight a comment down below. Beep, beep, beep. And you can also share my videos with your family, your friends. Because I am out here, and there is this beautiful tree out here, I am going to say a squirrel and a chipmunk. So yes, you could share my videos with a squirrel or chipmunk. And also, you could find me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K, Dingman Starlight. Thank you all. Thank you for those of you who watch my videos or give me thumbs up or even subscribe to my YouTube channel, or those of you who leave me a comment down below, beep, 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 or those of you who share my videos. Thank you. Thank you for all of you being here, loving and supporting Starlight, and I hope everybody is doing awesome. And if not, remember, wherever you are, whatever you're going through is not going to last forever. So remember, it's, you know, sometimes things just go slow, and you just stay in the love frequency. You know, that is one of my things right there, is don't let fear be your guide. You know, let love guide you, not fear. So, anyway, I love you so much, and like I mentioned in other videos, is if you have any pets and you would like to share them with me, you can do that on my Instagram or on Facebook, and that is on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or at Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K, Dingman Starlight. So I would love to share your pets. Either you got a short video or a picture, you can send that in one of those places. Just let me know in that video when you decide that you want to do that. Is just message me down below the video and let me know, hey Starlight, I sent you a picture of my monkey. I have a pet monkey. Not your kids. They like to monkey around, right? So anyway, thank you for being here. And today, this is really important. It's this is to help parents out. Starlight did not have to go through this with my children. You know, not really. It was, you know, they were already like teenagers. And so anyway, I am going to help you for parents that are having babies and having kids right now. And, you know, you could be, you know, with a child right now. You could be pregnant, you know, ready to have a baby at any moment, or you could have kids that are toddlers, little babies, infants. You know, you might have kids that are like 7, 8 years old, 9, but really any age. But when it comes to what I'm talking about, with anything with parenting, the sooner the better that you do these things with your children, you know. And this is all about technology. And what, Starlight, what do I do? I got kids and I'm afraid. I am afraid. I know lots of people, lots of parents are afraid because they don't know what to do when it comes to technology as far as with their children. And the universe gave me this video because a message here on this topic, because of things that I see out in society. And you know, my kids, my son, I can't say for my daughter. My daughter wasn't with me at the time when, you know, Starlight had the fear of computers a long time ago during 2000, 2007, you know, so I was in a cult church. We weren't allowed, you know, to have a cell phone. You know, we had a house phone. And then that's where the pastor goofed up. He wanted everybody to be homeschooled. And at first we did have the paper, books and stuff like that. Well, then they found a program, but you had to have a computer. And that, actually, I was like so scared of a computer. But that's how I ended up starting to have a computer, is because my kids needed to be homeschooled. And one family introduced like a homeschooling program that really, really benefited the children and the parents. So that's how computers got in my life. Later on, I had a computer, a desktop, before I even had a cell phone. So this video is going to help you and any parent out there who is struggling, who is afraid, don't know what to do, as far as the technical, like computers, cell phones, and all that. So this is going to help parents or even grandparents, because grandparents, I'm far away from my grandsons, so I really am not there for my kids, but I do, reach out and talk to them. But those of you that are there and you have a big influence on your children, you could really help your kids that have, your grandkids, out in this. You might be, oh my, what are we going to do? The grandkids, your kids, what are you going to do when it comes to the computers? You want to start things, not that we're always going to do things the right way when it comes to your kids, but you want to start off the right way with your kids, and that means anything and everything. And it's okay that you're not always going to have the right answers and do things that, those are lessons. So don't beat yourself up, because I know what it's like is, to beat yourself up, and God does not want you to beat yourself up, but you can learn and you can pass that wisdom and knowledge to other parents, and say, hey, this is what I did, and this is how it affected my child or me or our relationship. So this will help you. And really what you want to do when it comes to technology with your kids is, I seen a beautiful family out, and they were carrying their baby with them. They probably had the stroller, but the man was carrying the baby with them, and they were out on a hike. And I said, wow, yes, that's amazing. The earlier the better. Yes. Really start your kids off in the right way, is by the earlier the better. Get them out when they're babies, bring them out, make sure they have all their stuff with them that they need, as far as being out in nature, is to make sure that they have the water, the food, all their comforting things that they need, whatever it is that you normally would bring, extra clothes, drinks, snacks, or whatever, depending on what age your children are at. So it is so important, really, to get your kids outside more. That's what really, the less time that you spend inside the house, it's better for your kids. Start off on a good move like that, is like, let's get out of the house. Keep on, anytime you got free time and you can make time, is get your kids outside at any age, is to get them outside and get them to learn about insects. If you don't know anything about it, they got programs out there at certain parks that you can bring your children there with you, and you can learn right with the people. They get groups out there, maybe on Facebook, the Facebook event where you can go out, and where, these people would be happy to help you out with your kids, getting them interested in getting out in nature, getting them out hiking, getting them out, and you don't have to send them to school to do sports. You can go out as a family and do sports. You don't have to always depend on this public school. You are, it's not the public school's responsibility to bring your children up. It's the parents, it's you. So it's so important to always, they say a happy family stays together when they play together. So it's so important, if you want a really strong family, is to spend time and get out of the house. Get out, go take a road trip. Say, you know what, we're unplugging today. We're going to go out in nature. That's number one. First thing is to get the kids out in nature, because I see all kinds of stuff out here. And I met a family, a man, and he had his a daughter and a son, And I was like, wow, look at that. You're in the greatest place in the world. And the one daughter, it was kind of funny expressions on her face. She's like, looked like she was like, they didn't want to go out in nature. And they're only, around a little older than my grandson, but about 7, 8 years old. And they're already like, because they got, the parents, they're always inside, and you're going to have a hard time getting them out. When they're always inside the house, watching TV, going on a computer, yeah, playing video games, yeah, you're going to have a hard time with your kids getting them out. When they get so used to being in there, that you're gonna totally miss out on the real world and the things that matter by being outside, out in nature somewhere. Get introduced animals to them. Read about animals. Get books. Bring a lot of books in the house about animals and nature and educate them. Learn with your family, with your kids. And when it comes to technology, what are you doing with the technology? They might be already plugged in, but it's important, what are they doing on the technology? So you want to start your kids off, if you're going to do what you want to do, whether you introduce technology to your infants with a little toy cell phone and a little computer. So if you start off that way, you're really, that's not the wisest way to start them off. You're already introducing technology before they even, get to go outside and learn about nature, learn about, rain and snow and bugs, learn about, all kinds of different information that you can learn about nature. And you could take a trip to the library and, show them about different things about animals and stuff. Now, if you're going to do something with your kids about technology, that would be a great thing. There's things on TV, but really getting them outside and showing that to them out there. Starlight is not a fan of the zoo or anything like that, but they do have zoos and they do have animals out there, and of course it's going to cost money most of the time for that. I don't like seeing animals caged up, but it would be a good way to introduce the kids to animals so they can get more interested in being out in nature. That is the biggest goal, and the biggest thing that you want is and that means mom, dad, you got to get out with them. If you're afraid of what's going to happen with your kids with technology, guess what? Just like in all things with you as being a parent, you got to be that example to your kids. You got to be the ones to show them how to do this. When it comes to technology, if you're that parent that's already gave them like a cell phone for a toy, as a little kid, and they went to school and now they want a cell phone, and you caved in and you already gave them the cell phone, okay, we'll start there. Okay, it's already too late. They already got the cell phone. They already getting introduced to the computer, right? Okay. So on that point is start your kids, if you already got that far, it's really best to avoid all that at all costs. Tell your family, you know what? Don't buy my kids cell phones and don't buy my kids all this stuff. I really don't want to introduce that until later on when they're, when they really need to learn about that, because of course if you're going to be sending them to school, it's good to learn how to use a computer, but to use it wisely, to educate them how to be responsible using it, and to discipline your kids. I'm not saying beat your kids, okay? Discipline them, but mom and dad, you got to discipline yourself. Teach your kids, like, okay, have balance with yourself first. How much time do they see you on your cell phone? How much time do they see you, on your computer? How do they see you as a parent, as a mom or a dad? Do they see that you're glued to your computer? Do they see that you're glued to your phone? You could be a great example by teaching them, like somebody calls you, okay, the phone rings, answer it, talk, do a time limit thing. Hey, because really it is about balance. It's like, like a half-hour conversation, but depending on your situation with your family, is to teach them balance. Hey, I got to get off the phone now. I got other things I got to do. You don't want to get, your kids seeing that you're on the phone forever, like you're on the phone all day long. You want to be a good example to your kids. So if they already have a cell phone, you're already being that example to them. When you go to the restaurant, what are you doing? Are you bringing your cell phones in there? No, that you can bring it in there. You could put women have your cell phone. If you have a pocketbook, it goes in your pocketbook. Men, if you have in your pocket, it's in your pocket. Teach your kids. Show them discipline by being that example to your kids and teaching them, like, hey, this is no phone time. That phone call, guess what? Unless you're going through stuff that, you got somebody in the hospital and you don't know what's going on, and, you want to, hey, I want to know what's going on. That's a different reason to check the phone at the restaurant. Teach your kids. Be that example to your kids of what you expect them to do. They're not going to know until you teach them. Just because their friends are staring at their screen and carrying their phone everywhere, is that you got to teach your kids that they're not going to be like that. And so that is number one with the cell phones, is teach your kids, is like, when you're driving, what are you doing when you're driving? What kind of an example are you to your kids? It's one thing, like what Starlight does, is I have a thing that holds my phone, and you just kind of a suction cup that goes on the glass in the front window in my car. So then, when I'm, teach this to them, teach them to be responsible. Like, especially because later on they're going to be driving. So what are you doing? What kind of example are you to your children when you're behind this in the car? Be mindful of the things that you're doing, because they're watching everything that you're doing with your phone. Whether you think are or not, they are. They're observing everything that you do. They're very smart. Don't put it past these kids. They're very smart. And so be an example. Like with Starlight, I always have to use my GPS, because I don't know where the heck I'm going. I know where I'm going, but I don't know how to get there. Is to teach them, like, hey, I'm in my car. I'm going to use my GPS on the phone, set the address up. Now, I don't have kids, so I don't have to do all, like be careful of anybody watching me doing what I'm doing. But be mindful of what you are doing in front of your kids when it comes to your cell phone, when it comes to responsibilities as far as your safety, not just for you, but your whole entire family. Make sure, that you can teach them, self-discipline is like, if the phone rings while you're driving, you don't have to take that phone call. But if you have, it's good to teach them to say, you know what, that call can wait. Even if you do have Bluetooth, even if you have, like, Starlight loved it when I had it, is that I could talk to my family members, and it was hands-free. But really, it's best with your children not to do that. The more you do, the more they're going to go past what, the boundaries. There's boundaries, and kids are always going to go past those boundaries. You set up rules, they're always going to test those boundaries, whatever you set up. So you want to be mindful of, if you pull back and discipline yourself by saying, you know what, I'm going to do this when they're around. Anytime my kids are around, I'm going to be that great example to them. And when I get behind the wheel, I'm going to teach them, do the address thing, and to avoid watching videos or listening to videos when you're driving. Do that for your kids. Do that for their safety, because when you do that, you're putting the wall down, and they're always going to double up on what you are doing. Later on, they might do more than doing, watching a video or what, and you really want to keep your kids, teach your kids how important it is to be focused on the driving. Like I mentioned just to somebody today, even having a Bluetooth, you know what? There's sometimes we get people that call up on our phones. and they can cause a lot of stress. So now you're angry and upset, and you're driving, behind the steering wheel, and your family's back there, and you're upset, and now you're not going to be able to function right, because driving when you're upset is not a cool thing. Believe me, I've been there, done that. I don't want to wear a t-shirt on that. It's very dangerous to drive when you're upset, emotionally frustrated, angry. Any of those low vibrational frequencies is not good to drive your car. So it's best not to even talk on the phone. Let your family know. If I'm driving, there's even a setting on most phones. I don't know what phone you have, but with your phone you can even go into settings, and where if you're driving and somebody wants to get a hold of you, they're calling you up, but you're driving, it will send a message to that person and let them know that, hey, you're driving. And they should respect that, right? I hope so. The other thing that you really, as far as being a parent and bringing your kids up in the technical, stuff like the cell phones or computers, I just saw this today. This is like a do not do that you don't want to do, is to be, bringing your kids somewhere. And so, like, you got like a baby. The baby can't sit up on its own. It could sit, but you got to hold it, And so I just seen this today at the library. This is a do not do. You do not want to start your children off like this. Is when you're at a computer where now you got the baby on your lap and the baby's head. That's all the baby sees is the computer screen in front of their face, and mommy's just sitting there busy, and holding the baby, that you got to find different ways of doing it. When I was bringing up my kids, we had like a carrier. You can, sometimes they detach from the car seat, where it's a 2-in-1, where you can push the buttons, and now you can actually carry your child with a, and it's got a belt around it so it doesn't fall out, if you accidentally tip it, where they're secured in there, and you can carry that. And if you do have to go to the library for using the computer, get toys, get something for them to play with, not a little cell phone toy, but get them something that they can entertain themselves, or even healthy snacks. So while you're busy, they're not sitting right in front of mom working on the computer. You don't want that be the only thing that they always see is, they're going to feel so comfortable with mom's sitting on mom's lap, and their head is just popping up above the, now this table is kind of high here, so the baby's head, is going to barely just come up here, depending on the size of the person. But you don't want where the child's head is always looking at a computer screen and always seeing mom always on, because that's being programmed in their head, about you're programming them. And you got to really protect your kids with the technology and be that example to your kids. Have discipline for yourself. Wean off of things. Like teach your kids. You want your kids to have a cell phone. Well, how are you with a cell phone? Or you might not want your kids to have a cell phone. Well, then be that a good example is to teach your kids how like how you want to see them is the way you use yours, is to, when it's family time, it's family time. When people come to the house, I had to do this with my son. It's rude, teach your kids manners, teach your kids. I had to do this with my son about video games, is, like when his sister would come to our house to visit, guess what? Buy a video game, buy a computer, buy a cell phone. This is family time right now. This is family time. This is not time. You had all the time before they were coming, So, teach your kids, when family comes to the house, cell phones are put away. Computer, no, this is family time. This is time to spend time with your family. Your family traveled. And same if you went to travel to their house. No cell phone time right now. This is family time. It's serious. these are things that you really need to do with your kids, is to teach them this is family time. But guess what, Mom and Dad, you got to do the same thing. You got to be an example to your kids. This is family time right now. You know what? In the beginning, it will be rough. After a while, you'll get it down, and you'll be like, hey, I'm doing the right thing for them. I'm teaching them responsibilities, and I'm teaching them about family matters. You know, the other thing is, when it comes to computers and stuff like that, is of course protect your kids from things on the screens, on their devices. You know, set things up so then, you know, but of course when they get a certain age, they're super smart, and they can, you know, trick you and all this stuff. So you always want to keep an eye on what they are doing. If it's already too late, they already have a cell phone, they're already learning how to do computer stuff, because they're gonna learn from their friends how to change passwords. Google makes it so freaking easy for everyone to change somebody's password. You don't even have to have it, you know. It's really something how easy it is for people to hack into my stuff. But, you know, when I want to try to change a password or do something on my own device or my own computer, it's easier for a person to hack in my own stuff and take over my whole stuff than it is, you know, it's like crazy. So you got to be mindful of this, is to, you know, you know, you might have to even, like, when it comes to computers, you know, starting out, the computer is not going to be in the bedroom. Absolutely not. 100%. No way. No way. When my son was growing up, the computer was not in his bedroom. The computer was in the living room. You know, and of course when that happens though, so this is the funny thing when it comes to kids, they're super smart, is, okay, the computer's in the living room. Well, the child, how old is the child? Old enough to be home alone, right? So what do you think the children are going to do when you're out of the house and you're not at the house? You know, when you're not at the house, what do you think? They're going to go on that computer, they're going to break every rule that you can think of, you know, what they're not supposed to do. And then they're super smart. You know, you might even call and say, hey, we're heading back home. You know, you don't have to let your kids know that we're coming back home. Just surprise them, you know, because they might even track you. You know, these kids are super smart. They could track you on your phone, and they're like, oh, Mom and Dad's coming back. Oh, you know, have some cameras at your house. Don't let your kids know that you got cameras in the house. It doesn't have to be in their bedroom, because the computer's not in their room. Have hidden cameras. Don't, you know, if you're a mom or a dad, you don't have to let anybody know about these cameras. Of course, it might cause a lot of problems in the family that nobody knows about this hidden camera in the house, but it will save your family a lot of problems down the road, especially with boys or girls, you know, going on sites that you don't want them on, like porn sites or even live chat sites. There's a lot of girls and boys that go on that, and if you had the computers in their room, they could be doing some funky shit in the bedroom. And if they're the ones running the house by wearing the pants in the house and making all the rules up because you're not being that parent that they need, is to say no. And yes, I am saying it this way because it needs to be said this way, because this is what happens, is when you give the power over to your kids, they're the ones going to be running the house. They're the ones that are going to put the locks on their own doors so you can't get in, and that's what you don't want. You want to make sure that you're the one that's in full control of what's going on. And if there's a dad in the house, Dad, you got to step up. This is where your spot is. But if there's no daddy around, Mom, it's your place. You gotta be wise on what you let your kids do and what they don't do, and that means have a camera in the house. You know, let your kids know. You know what? I am gonna check your room. Let them know. You don't even have to let them know, but you can let them know, because when you let them know, they'll be like, oh, my mom is gonna walk in here and they're gonna do checks in my room. Hey, I'll tell you what, they do that in the hospitals. They do checks in there. Those people, the patients that are in there, they were reading my notebook. I didn't know they were gonna read my stuff. I knew that this place was corrupt. I was writing all that information down, you know, and they knew everything what I was up to. So yes, you're the parent. Be the parent and be the one that's going to be a responsible parent, and to be nosy. That's your job, to be nosy. They're still in your house, right? Yes, they're still in your house. So that means you have absolute right. When they prove themselves and they go get a job and they go get a car and they have money where they can go, okay, now it's all up in their hands. But as far as you as a parent goes, it's your responsibility to make sure you do spy. It's a spy thing. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to kids, they could have anything anywhere. You could pray about it. That's what I did, and it worked. It was marvelous. I got a gift. When I pray, shit happens, and it's amazing. I was able to find things, that I would have never known of. I felt there was something wrong, and I prayed and asked God to help me. If there's anything in this bedroom, and it wasn't my son, it was somebody else's kid, and I said, if there's anything in, because that child was always getting in trouble, so you got to be like 10 steps ahead, not 10 steps behind. You got to think like them. You got to know what are they up to. There's kids that they learn a lot from public schools and a lot of stuff from their friends. You got to be ahead, not behind. And so I did. I prayed. I'm like, God, please, if there's something in this room that I need to know about, please, I pray that you would guide me to help me to find whatever it is that's in this room. And I'll tell you what, I was shocked. I was shocked when I found what I found. And I was like, ah! I mean, I didn't just find, everything was all in one place. So you really do. You got to check out. And computers, that's where you got to, notebooks, read notebooks. You could have a child that wants to end their life. I used to write all my problems down in books. All my problems down in books. If I was having a bad, shitty day and I felt really horrible, you got to read their books. That means it's going to take time. When they're, you got them at their friend's house. I hope it's a good friend that because those kids, they're wearing masks. They could pretend and put on the goody two-shoes kid, because I've been there. I had a stepson, and that's what he did. He put a mask on. He was great at pretending and making me think he was such an angel. He was no angel. So, sorry about that noise. Is just because a child will act like it's a mask. Don't fall for that shit. I'm serious. Those kids be like, hee. Later on, they're freaking doing stuff and getting your child into things that you have no clue what the heck is going on. So it's so important. If you got these tight rules at your house, I hope you're being wise of what kind of parents, when you send your kids off to their friend's house, what kind of rules do they have going on at their, no rules. They don't have any rules at their house, huh? They got the computer in the room. They got the door shut the whole time in the room with the lock on the inside of the room, right? What are they doing? They could have loud music in the room and you would not even know what other stuff is going on in that bedroom. There's stories, there was a man that caught his daughter, dancing sexy. Holy shit. I was like, wow. He blew her TV apart. He brought that TV out and blew that thing. He was shocked. And he did put that, of course, I think he, definitely went overboard by putting it online for everybody else to see his daughter. What kind of thing does that do to your daughter? What kind of thing did that, nobody sees that after effect, of what happened to her after she was put on a video for the whole world to see. Putting that shit like that about your kids, that can make that girl want to kill herself, because everybody knows about what she did. So you got to really be wise on what you do, the do's and don'ts, as far as bringing your kids up in this world of technology. I love you so much, and you could give this video a thumbs up. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, don't be afraid, don't be shy. Swing by and say hi to Starlight by leaving me a comment down below. Beep, beep, beep. And you can follow me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that's Kathy with a K, Dingman Starlight. I love you all, and please share this video. I love you so much. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight. Love, like, and peace.